So, welcome to the webinar, The Top 3 Ways to Grow Your Coaching Business in 2026, and which one actually works without burning you out. So, I am your host, Jessica Rhodes. I am the creator of the podcast booking industry and founder of Interview Connections. We help coaches build predictable, authority based client acquisition systems, and strategic podcast appearances are the engine that powers it. And since 2013, we've booked over 1,000 coaches for more than 50,000 podcast interviews. Um, I started this company as a new mom. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. So my dad, who's a business coach, hired me as a virtual assistant. That's how I got started. And it was the photo that you're looking at here was the walk we took. You see me there with my dad's dog. That's my son Nathan, who will be 13 in March. This is the walk we took where we came up with the idea to start interviewconnections.com. And I am just so passionate about helping coaches grow so they can work less and earn more and stay home with their family. And in today's webinar, if you use the strategies that we'll talk about today, here is what can happen. Our client, Dr. Jolie Hamilton, in 5 years has closed over 250 plus coaching clients. Julia Blackwell, in just a year, over 100 clients, and Christina L. Woods, in about 3 years, over 50 clients. So I just want you to ask yourself, how different would your life and business be with these types of results with working with this many clients? Now, I'm really excited to introduce our guest speaker, Kevin St. Clergy. Kevin is somebody that has come into my life within the last 3 to 4 weeks. He reached out to me first, found me on a Google search, inquiring about our services. He became a client, and then I turned around and hired him and as my business coach. And he's just been blowing my mind over the past couple of weeks since I started coaching with him. And he is an expert in blind blaming. He has started and sold a very successful agency, and I've just really loved working with him. So I'm so excited to bring him in. I'm going to stop sharing and allow Kevin to go through his presentation as our guest speaker.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am going to get my slides up here as soon as I can share my screen. There we go. And hopefully you can see it now. Let me know, Jessica.
Yep, looks good.
Awesome. Well, my name is Kevin St. Clergy, and what Jessica didn't mention is her dad. This is a really small world story. Her dad's name is Jim Palmer. And 20 years ago, Jim Palmer, one of his books changed my life. So we started working together. And she's like, my dad used to help and do these things. And I was like, oh, who's your dad? And she's like, Jim Palmer. And I was like, oh, Jim Palmer, that doesn't sound familiar. But then I went and found the book that I read that actually changed my career in a positive way. And I'm like, no way, your dad's freaking Jim Palmer. So we've connected recently and we shared a few clients and he really helped me back in the day. So her dad's a pretty amazing person, and so is Jessica. So I'm honored to be here because I love what Jessica's doing. We had a podcast guesting agent that we were working with. It was $5,000 a month, and I've gotten more out of Jessica in the last month than I did the whole year out of that particular group that I was working with. So I'm happy to donate my time to her cause because I really believe in what she's doing. But for those of you who don't know me, I wrote a book called Beyond Blind Blaming. I also have a podcast called Beyond Blind Blaming as well. We started that in June. We've had 300,000 downloads in a very short term, so we're pretty proud of that. I do have a company called Blind Blaming, and we certify other coaches on how to use our methodology to get breakthrough results for their clients. I'm also a partner in something called Platinum Partner Group. We have high-end masterminds. Right now we have 3. We have a couple more that are coming out next year, but these are $25,000 to $50,000 high-end mastermind groups for $1 million businesses and above. And just people pay to be in the room. It's a wonderful environment where we create real transformation. When you get around a lot of people in the same room, it's pretty amazing to see what everybody does and how they help each other. And I also have a real estate company as well. So with that, when I was 10 years old, I was a phenomenal baseball player. That's actually me and my dad, and my little brother. I wish it was fuzzy, but you can't really scan some of the old photos. That's how old I am anyway. But I had a batting average of 550. And if you don't know much about baseball, 550 is not really good. It's actually great. In fact, Babe Ruth in his heyday had a 394. So at 10 years of age, for me to hit almost every other time I got to bat was pretty amazing. And people noticed. And my dad noticed and other coaches noticed and said, you really need to start developing this kid. He's got some talent. Keep it going. So we hired a swing coach. My dad actually started working with me on my mindset at that age, which was interesting. And I loved to play. It was one of my favorite things to do back then. And we practiced every day in that off season between the 10-year-old and 11-year-old season. But when I stood up to bat the next season, something was different. I started swinging and missing. And I literally went the entire season without one hit. I went from hero to zero in one short season. All that work I did wasn't paying off. You can probably guess what I heard from the stands. Come on, kid, keep your head in the game. Play to win this time. And my dad, you can probably imagine the lectures I got on the way home from my dad about all the things that I did wrong in that game that I never got a hit in. And it went the whole season. And after that next season of getting put on the bench and only playing 2 games the entire season, watching a game that I so desperately wanted to play while my other friends played. It's the first time in my life that I felt like a complete failure. Just in the chat for me, how many of you have ever felt like a complete failure in your life? At least one time, just put I. And not alone, but it was a pretty young age to actually go through that. But here's what happened. After I finally stopped blaming myself and just said, you know what, I'm done. I don't want to play baseball anymore. I'm no good at it. And I quit. And 2 weeks after I quit, we found out what the real problem was. At a fluke eye exam, a doctor said, sorry, kid's practically blind without glasses. So I just couldn't see to hit the ball. It wasn't my attitude. It wasn't my swing. It wasn't my commitment. It wasn't me. It was my vision. And so here's the real problem. No adult in my life stopped blaming me for something that ended up being out of my control. And I call that blind blaming. And it's at the core of every organizational problem that your clients have and that you have with your business. And we're going to talk about that today. And the key concept for today is people aren't failing at solving their problems. They're succeeding at solving the wrong problem perfectly. And when we find out what the right problem is and start fixing it, as we've been doing the last 3 years since we started this concept and the methodology behind it, is we're transforming people's lives a lot faster than I used to as a coach. It's become more transformational instead of transactional. It's been really amazing to see how well it's worked, and it's kind of taken off. So the agenda for today for my short spiel is awareness, the RCB method, and transformation. So once you're aware of blind blaming, things already start to change. And so to understand it a little bit more is blind blaming is blind because you can't see the real problem. You can't see what's really going on, just like we couldn't in my story that I shared. It's blaming because as human beings, we instinctively have to assign fault somewhere, but it also keeps us from seeing solutions. So here's some common blind blaming scenarios that I run into as I work with coaches and other companies that we work with as well. Coaches blame their marketing agency or their team when their team is only responding to 50% of the calls that come in or leads that come in, and those that are answered are handled poorly with a poor sales process, with either no script or, most importantly, it's a horrible offer or it's the wrong pricing. There's a lot of things that can happen there, but we start placing blame somewhere else when it can be one of these things. Or we start blaming, like I did, kids, wife, husband, partner, our job, our schedule, our employees, the weather, etc., for not starting and sticking with a fitness program. And I lost 40 pounds this year once I got to the bottom of what was really holding me back. And believe it or not, had nothing to do with the weights, the nutrition, the walking that I was doing, the cardio that I was doing. It had everything to do with my identity. And I really just never wanted to be that gym-toting, gallon of water drinking douchebag that skipped out on wine night. And once I got to the core of that and fixed it, there's a book out there that I would highly recommend called The Mountain Is You. Amazing book. That's what helped me get to the bottom of this. But I was constantly blaming other things. I just had to get to that root cause, which was my identity, and then I fixed it. This one I hear a lot, and I'm sure you guys as coaches do as well. I hear people all the time like, Kevin, people just don't want to work anymore. And I'm like, really? Do you think it's possible they just don't want to work for you? And then I'll ask questions like, talk to me about your hiring strategy. Are you creating high performance profiles and then trying to match those high performance profiles with a DISC assessment or some type of personality assessment? And I usually get the same answer. What do you mean? Okay, wrong answer. Talk to me about your employee onboarding. Oh, you mean my client onboarding? I'm like, no, your employees. What are you doing to make them have a great experience from day one in your company? How are you teaching them the things that you need to know or that they need to know that they're important? How are you making them feel like they're part of an organization who's going to create real impact, and so they're part of something bigger? and they're confused. But a lot of times we just point the fingers at the wrong places, in the wrong places, the wrong people, or the wrong things, and that is blind blaming at its core. Or something I hear from coaches all the time where they think they need to lower their prices or create different packages because their clients start saying no when they present them with a solution that they offer. And it's usually because of a lack of a sales process or their offer is off. Like my coach 20 years ago was a guy named Russell Brunson. Many of you know him. He's a good friend of mine. He's the first person that I called because with Russell's help, my first book helped generate $50 million in sales for us with a successful exit. I owe him the world. It was interesting because everybody always just say, did you make a lot of money with your first book? I was like, no, but I made a ton of money giving it away because I created a business behind the book. But he always says, hook, story, offer. If you've got a problem with your hook, getting people's attention, or the story, or the offer that you make, that's why your business is failing. But I want to back up a little bit. If you're not generating enough leads for your business to get them in the funnel, it doesn't matter how good your hook is or your offer or your story because there's nobody to present a solution to. And that's what Jess is going to talk about for the rest of the call. But there's 3 fatal flaws of blind blame that I think you need to be aware of. Now, my very first book that you can see behind me, if you can zoom in a little bit, it was called The Death of Audiology. We built a digital marketing agency and coaching agency in a medical field, which was very successful for audiology, hearing aid, and ear, nose, and throat surgeons. And since has grown into a very large company that handles a lot of different medical fields. But fatal flaw number 1 is that when you're blind blaming, it feels right. And there's these cognitive biases that we're all aware of. They can be really good because they give us structure, they help us make decisions, but they can also cause problems. And the first one I'll share with you is called the availability bias. Availability bias means the first thing that pops into our head that's causing the problem is the number one thing. We know deep down inside that is the thing. And then that leads to fatal flaw number 2, where it's self-reinforcing. Then we suffer from confirmation bias, which means we become a treasure hunter trying to find information that backs up our initial thought. And it causes us to ignore contradictory evidence, even when it's really clear. And then finally, number 3 is it blocks real solutions. And so when you're busy blind blaming, you can't see a solution that's in place. And what does that mean for us? It's a very high cost because I've seen people that we've helped recently in the last 3 years with the new program, is they've been stuck for sometimes decades. And then we find out it's something that they never would have thought of, and it creates a ripple effect across their lives, the lives of the people in their business, and the people that they help. But if you're seeing recurring problems that don't get any better, whether it's you or your clients, escalating frustration, relationship strain, diminishing confidence, or something I call supportive sabotage, those people in the stands and my dad with my baseball story, they were trying to help me, but they weren't helping at all. All they were doing was making me feel worse. So to break free from from blind blaming, we have what we call the RCD method. It's a simple process, but simple, as you know, as coaches, doesn't always mean easy. So let's go through it. So we call it reflect, connect, and decide. So when you reflect, it's really centered around one key question. Is there something else going on that I can't see? And this is not only for your business, but for how you're helping your clients as well. Is there something else going on that I can't see? When I have more time to do this in a keynote or when we teach it in our certification program, there's 5 areas of someone's life and their business that we go through. And it's not trying to find one thing in each of those 5 areas. We call it the obstacle DNA. We try to find that one thing that's really at the root cause of everything that they have. And there's been root cause analysis that many of you are already aware of out there for years, but I find that most of those have failed. And the reason is because when they try that root cause analysis and they have the 6 whys or whatever they do, they're usually doing it in their sphere of influence. And because of those cognitive biases, it's almost physiologically impossible for you to see a different way of doing things. In fact, it's been proven. There's a book called The Structure of Scientific Revolution, which I believe is the most quoted book in history, where this guy studied researchers. And when the researchers did studies and the results of those studies fit into their paradigm, the way they thought what they thought would happen, everything was fine. But when they got results that didn't fit into what they think were going to happen, they would run the test again and again and again. And it's the definition of insanity that we all know. And from what I understand, the author book got pretty bent out of shape when people started using his findings in business because he really wrote it for researchers. But the key to the next step, once you've reflected and you think you know what's going on, then you need to connect. And you need to share what you think is going on with a professional coach or a mastermind group, which are my two favorite ways to do things. I've always had a coach. I've had a life coach, a business coach, and I've been part of a mastermind group for 20 years since I started with Russell Brunson. I think it's one of the most fantastic things to be part of, and you learn a lot. But when you have what you think is going on and you share it with a group, like recently in one of our masterminds, we had a client who had hit that revenue plateau about $750,000 a year. She shared with the group what she thought was going on. And one of the members said, "You know what I think your problem is? It's the same problem I had 2 years ago. You haven't given yourself permission to grow. You've hired three different salespeople. You've underpaid all three of them, which has brought you in really bad talent because of your fear of hiring someone that doesn't work out and then having to pay them when they're not getting the results you want. You haven't given yourself permission to grow." And she dropped her arms and she said, "You're right." She went out, paid top dollar for a salesperson who knew what they were doing, and her business is up 30% for the year. So that's the power of connecting with people outside of your sphere of influence. And you guys see this as coaches. This is what you do for a living for people, but sometimes you need to do it for yourself. And then finally, decide. And I'm going to use some strong language in this section. It actually turned out to be one of the most popular things when I do my keynotes or in the book. Even Jack Canfield, who was only the second person I had read the book, he's the guy who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul and the Success Principles, one of my heroes. And he's like, "Man, I even love that part in the book where you cuss a little bit." And I was like, "Really? Okay, awesome." So my friend Eric had this philosophy where if anybody cussed or used strong language, he just avoided them. He didn't like it. But then he got this epiphany one day that said, "You know what? I'm not going to let anybody else's choice of words keep me from a life-changing discovery." And I think he's right there. And so I had a client who was about to double her business. She was about to acquire another company, which really was going to double her business. It was super exciting. I've been working with her for about 7 years. And she was debating on which loan to take because she kept getting better offers. And about 2 months in, she just asked me on a coaching call, "Well, Kevin, what do you think I should do?" And I've known her for 7 years. And I just said bluntly, "Well, Kayla, I think you need to make a fucking decision." And she's like, "Okay, okay." I knew her well enough, didn't hurt her feelings. She dropped off, got back on the next call, and I start the call off like I like to start calls off these days because the world's a dumpster fire. Instead of saying, "How's it going?" I always say, "Hey, what's going well?" And she immediately went in, "Hey, listen, Kevin, I'm MFDing all over the place. You've changed my life. Even my husband's noticed. I mean, I'm making decisions. We're making progress. Yeah, I've made some mistakes, but I've pivot so I don't perish." I'm like, "Wait a minute, Kayla, what are you talking about? MFD?" And she's like, "Yeah, making fucking decisions. I'm doing it. And you've changed my life." And I was like, "Wow, that's awesome. Do you mind if I use that in my book?" And it was my biggest fear. Even we did it for a church group. I didn't use it in the church group, but when I asked people what's their favorite part about the whole process, the RCD method, they're like, "MFD. I need to be more decisive in my business." And it's no different than Napoleon Hill, who we all know of. He's one of the old gurus that most of you hopefully have read, Think and Grow Rich. But from what I understand, a story I read about him, he used to, on his elevator up to his office, he used to just say this over and over again to himself. Um, Do it now, do it now, do it now, do it now. That was his way to get into a decisive mood. However you do that, whether you say MFD, which has turned into a whole movement, and these daily 5 MFDs that I can share later if I see you guys again in Jessica's mastermind groups, it's made a significant difference. So be decisive. Figure out what you've got going on. See if there's something you can't see. Share it with an outside source, a mentor, a paid coach, paid masterminds. I like paid groups and paid coaches because people who pay, as you know, pay attention. And then MFD, decide what you're going to do next. And if you do that, I believe, because I've seen it for the last 3 years, that you will create a lasting transformation, not only in your business or practice, whatever you choose to call it, but I think you will have a considerable impact on the people that you help. And if you want a free copy of my book as a thank you for being here today and a thank you to Jessica for having me, if you'll just email Jessica your address if you're comfortable, I will send you a signed hard copy of my book or send you an audio version if that sounds good to you. I don't want to sell from the stage today, but she didn't tell me I couldn't give anything away. So if you guys want a free copy of my book, whether it's an audio book, the PDF, or a physical hard copy that I signed, I would love to send you a copy and get your feedback on what you think of the book. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Jessica. Thanks for having me.
Yes, please email me so I can get you that book. John asked if it's the uncensored version, and I think yes, it would be the uncensored.
Yeah. Funny story there, John. I can't see the chat. I'll get back on where I can. You can, while we're transitioning, I'll keep talking, Jessica.
Can you stop sharing your screen, Kevin, for
Yep,
me?
yep, yep.
Thank you.
So I thought I was going to have different editions. And what Jack said actually on the call was, "Man, I even love your effing part." And I'm like, "Really? Oh my God." But he didn't say it. He actually said the word. I was like, I just got Jack Canfield to cuss on a call. It was pretty funny. But I'm not going to do any other additions because it seems to be the most memorable part and it's become a thing. So anyway, I'll turn it back over to you, Jessica. Thanks again for having me. You guys seem like a great group.
Thank you so
Love the
much.
comments.
All right, awesome. So now let's get into it. This is why you're all here, to learn the three different strategies for filling your funnel and growing and building a sustainable authority-based coaching business. So we're going to go right now through the three different strategies. First, we're going to talk about paid advertising. Then we're going to go through organic content marketing, and number three, podcast guesting. So let's talk about paid ads. Paid ads is the fast track. This is running meta ads, so Facebook, Instagram, Google ads, YouTube ads, to drive leads to your funnel to get more coaching clients. And it works when, number one, you have a proven offer with numbers to back up the results. Number two, you have a conversion optimized funnel. So if you have a funnel that you know converts, like you have a webinar or a live launch, like you have a system where it's, if you know it's a numbers game, if you know that if more leads get into that funnel, they'll convert, then paid ads could be the right way for you to get more coaching clients. You can afford $3,000 to $10,000 a month in ad spend plus agency retainer fees. To give you context, and I speak about all these different strategies from direct experience because we run paid ads, we do organic marketing, we do podcast guesting, to really see an ROI and to see a lot of leads and coaching clients from paid ads, the ad spend has to be significant enough to get the volume, and you have to have somebody who knows what they're doing, which for us, it's an agency. Most of the time you want to be working with an agency, and a good agency that knows what they're doing, that's also keeping an eye on the conversion of the landing page that you're sending people to. It's going to be at least $4,000 a month. That's about what we're paying in our agency retainer, and that's not the ad spend. So this is an expensive track, but it can work if you've got that conversion optimized funnel and you have an offer that you know works. And you should also have a sales team. It works best when you have a sales team to qualify, to nurture, and convert a high volume of leads. Part of my sales team is here today. They know when we are getting leads in from ads, you've got to be speed to lead. You've got to be on top of that. You have to reach out. You have to figure out if they're qualified. You have to make sure they're getting the emails and the texts. So if you don't have an infrastructure, a team to manage all of those leads coming in, this may be a big money waster. And the bottom line is paid ads are great for scaling a proven offer. If you have a proven offer, this can work really well for you. It's terrible for building authority. Showing up on an advertisement is not the way to build authority. It's the way to quickly get visibility and to get leads into a funnel, but it is not an authority builder. And it is, quite frankly, not the right strategy for coaches who are making less than $30,000 a month. The reality is it can work fast if you have budget and infrastructure. It's like pouring gasoline on an already smoldering fire. Number two, it requires constant optimization and feeding. You've got to have, like, our ads team, the digital agency that I've been working with for 5 years. They're like, hey, Jess, can we get a new video? Can you take some new photos? Like, they need creative in order to then optimize the ads. Ads costs and management fees are going up every single year. Advertising spend and agencies and people who know what they're doing and can run an ad, they are not immune to inflation. So just as everything else has gotten more expensive, so have ads. You're competing with everyone else in your niche, especially at peak times, like around the holidays. That's when we really see the ads get a lot more expensive because suddenly you're like, every other post on Instagram is an advertisement for something that people want to buy for Christmas or whatnot. So it is very competitive. There's only so much real estate on somebody's Instagram or Facebook feed. So there's a lot of competition for those eyeballs. And the second you stop spending, the leads dry up. And again, I am speaking to you not from theory, but from experience. Many years ago, I made the mistake of turning off our ads and trying a different strategy, and the leads dried up like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I really took for granted all of those leads that were coming in while we were paying for ads. And then to build back up after you stop can be incredibly difficult. And it really builds zero long-term authority. Again, if you have a proven offer, you have at least $30,000 a month, you have a sales team, you have the budget, this can really take your business to new heights, but it doesn't build authority. Number two, organic content. I would guess this is where most coaches start, which is the slow build of showing up consistently on social media. LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok, whichever kind of platform you find your audience, and you're posting content that you are creating there in order to try to build a following and to build trust and authority and attract clients. And here is when it works. You are willing to show up daily for at least 6 to 12 months before seeing results. Number 2, you actually enjoy being on social media and creating content. If you don't like being on social media, you don't like creating content, this is going to be a real soul suck for you. Number 3, you have a clear niche and a point of view. Now, if we look at the big creators on social media, like, TikTokers, influencers, people have a massive following, they all have one thing in common. They have a very clear point of view and they have a very clear target audience. And that is how they're able to grow a following, is they have that clear point of view and that clear niche. And you're good on camera, you're excellent at writing, and you enjoy it.
Jessica,
Now,
you mind if I make one comment there real quick?
yeah, absolutely.
On just the last slide, if you know how to go backwards. I think the one thing I like on organic stuff that several coaches that I've worked with over the last couple of years have taught me is if you don't have an avatar, a target client, a micro niche that you're going after, and that unique point of view means you're speaking their language, it's very hard to get organic to work as well as it could. And it was great advice because the more focused we got on coaches at a certain level, the more successful we got. So just wanted to reiterate that. It was just something that I've learned the last couple of years the hard way, and wasted a lot of time that first year with this new concept with not being too focused on who we wanted to help and how we get there. So anyway, if it helps.
Absolutely. Yeah. Organic content really works best when the people who see your video, see the first hook of a video that you make, they're like, wow, she's speaking directly to me. But if your content is flopping and it's not super honed in, then it's not going to work as well. Now, the reality is it can build trust and authority over time, but it does require massive consistency and keeping up with social media trends. Most coaches burn out before they see any results from this strategy. It takes 6 to 12 months minimum to build momentum with organic content marketing and posting on social media. It requires daily posting to stay relevant. Again, we can use these like big time influencers and creators as an example. Every single one of them are creating posts multiple times a day, every single day. Algorithm changes can tank your reach overnight. We've probably all experienced that to some extent. All of a sudden, one day you've got 100 people seeing your Instagram story, and the next day it's 20. And you're like, I don't know what I did differently. It just is so random and volatile. You're also competing with everyone else in your niche and AI. You are competing with AI. If you're relying only on organic content, whether it's written posts on LinkedIn or videos on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or Facebook, whatever, all of them, you're now competing with AI. Most people are now getting to the point where they have a filter of this is probably AI. If I'm just seeing a post, ChatGPT probably wrote this. Maybe they used an AI app. They just took their likeness and now AI is making them do the video. It's not good. um, Even if you go a few days without posting, your reach can tank. I remember this because just this past October, I was like really getting the habit. I'm like, I'm gonna go on my Insta. We're so close to 10,000 followers. I'm like, I'm gonna get to 10,000 followers on Instagram. I'm gonna post every day. I'm gonna get in the habit. And it's good because when you do get in that habit and you have that daily consistency, more ideas come and you're building an audience and the reels, the views start getting bigger and bigger. And you're like, this is exciting. And then Thanksgiving hit, and I was like, I'm not going to be on Instagram on Thanksgiving. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take a long weekend. Well, guess what? I came back, and when I started posting again, the reach was a fraction of what it was when I was posting daily. And it just is like such a blow because you're like, oh my God, was I supposed to be posting every day while I'm also on vacation? And I guess I do if I want to keep my reach growing. So it's tough. It can work. There are lots of people growing wildly successful coaching business with this strategy, but it is a grind and it's not going to work if the idea of being on social media and creating fresh content every day burns you out. Now let's talk about podcast guesting. This is the authority accelerator. This is getting booked and interviewed on targeted podcasts where your ideal clients are already listening, where they are engaged, and they're ready to buy. It works when you have a clear message that you can articulate in a conversation over 30 to 60 minutes. It works when you appear on shows that your target audience actually listens to. So you have to go on the correct podcast for this to work. It works when you have a system to leverage each appearance. This is not just going to do a podcast interview and sitting back and seeing if that audience happens to rush to you wanting to buy. You actually have to have a system to leverage each appearance. It works when you show up prepared and you are delivering real value and you leverage your relationship with the hosts of the show and you give listeners a clear call to action at the end of the podcast. This is one of the biggest mistakes podcast guests make is they do a podcast interview. They're like, that was so fun. They loved it. I gave great stories. And then at the end, I'm like, what's your call to action? Wait, what's that? I just told them they could find me online somewhere and you're just sending people out into the ether. So giving a clear call to action is how you're going to drive really targeted listeners into your funnel. The bottom line is podcast guesting is the fastest path to authority for coaches without burning out or bleeding cash. It works for coaches at every level. And it builds authority faster than content marketing because you're borrowing somebody else's audience. If I come across somebody's Instagram post and I like it, but I go to their page, I'm like, I don't really know this person. Like, I like that post, but I'm kind of keeping them at an arm's distance. But if I hear that same person on a podcast of a host that I already know, like, and trust, instantly I trust that guest because somebody that I know and like and trust trusts them. One podcast appearance can create 30 days of daily content. You can repurpose one podcast interview into 30 different pieces of content that is going to fuel your organic strategy. It creates compounding effects. This is what I love most about podcast guesting is that it's not just visibility to an audience. It's not just building relationships with hosts. You're getting all that, plus you're getting the content, you're building your authority, you're honing your message, you're getting more confident at speaking and sharing your story, and you're improving your search engine optimization. Every time a podcast appearance is getting published online, that is a backlink to your website. So Google now sees you as an authority, and we all want Google to see us as an authority. It costs less than ads, and it takes a lot less time and energy than daily content. And podcast interviews they're two things. They are earned media and they are open source. This is the amazing thing about podcast guesting is it's open source, it's free. Anyone can find and listen to a podcast. And so when people are searching for information that you have, they are going to want to consume that information before giving you their name, their email, their phone number, their credit card information. So by you going out on free platforms that people are using to find content, to consume content, because more and more people want to be on social media less, they are going to podcasts as a way to find information and to feel that sense of connection with other people. And hosts become referral partners and collaborators. I have so many podcast hosts that are raving fans of mine, and they will refer people to me because they got to know me by having me on their podcast.
I'll add one more thing here too.
Yeah.
If you what I've learned over the last year is if you do this right, I've been amazed at how many podcast hosts will say, what else can I do to help you? Like if you do a good job on the post, you give them real value and you really work hard to give them the value for their listeners, not make it a total sales pitch. I've been shocked at how many people have said, "Hey, what can I do to help you? Do you want me to give you a book review? Want me to give you a review on your podcast?" It's like yes and yes and yes and yes. But it was a good surprise to get. But if you do a good job, it took me a while to get there. I wish I'd been working from Jessica from the very beginning because I think I could have had it happen faster. But that's one of my favorite things because I've increased my network and the people. I mean, to me, what really separates you from your competition is the quality and quantity of the personal relationships you decide to build. And when you're on the phone or on the podcast with a lot of people who have a big influence already, then you become an authority.
It's so true. Podcast hosts are incredibly well connected individuals because they have a podcast. And if they're interviewing somebody every single week, that's at least 52 people that they have had an hour-long conversation with. That's an incredible network that they could be connecting you with. They tend to be people that organize summits and in-person events because they're connectors. They have a podcast, so they're just such great people to build relationships with. So now let's compare all three strategies. So we have paid advertising. So we're going to go over speed, cost, authority building, and sustainability. Now, paid advertising, it is fast. I will give it that. You turn those ads on, you start paying Meta, you're going to get some leads in, you're going to get impressions and visibility. It's expensive. The cost is definitely the highest, and I can say that from experience. Advertising is one of my biggest expenses on my P&L. It's anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000 a month. It's not great for authority building. Great for visibility, not good for authority building. People just see you as somebody that's advertising, not a trusted authority. And it stops when you stop. So when you stop paying Meta, they typically don't want to put your ads out anymore. Content marketing, it's a slow burn. It is not expensive. It's quite frankly, you could do it all for free, but it takes a lot of time and creative energy. And the authority building, I would say, is medium because if you do it effectively and consistently and your content is good, you have that hook, you have that clear point of view, there are lots of people leveraging content marketing on social media to really become an authority, but it takes a long time to do that. And it does require that daily consistency. So if you look at your life and the lifestyle that you want to have as a coach, a lot of us, we started coaching because we didn't want it. We wanted to have some time freedom, right? And so if you're like, oh God, now I need to post every single day in order to get leads and clients from social media, I don't know about that. And then there's podcast guesting, the speed, medium. I am not going to tell you that you're going to get famous and start making six figures overnight from podcast guesting. The speed is medium. The investment, anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 a month will get you on the right podcasts and help you get leads and clients from podcast guesting. And authority building, high. It's the best way to build your authority because you're borrowing somebody else's audience and it compounds over time. So it's very sustainable. Now, why podcast guesting is different is number one, it's an authority transfer. So we've already talked a little bit about this. When you're on a podcast as a guest, you're getting authority because the host has authority, and now they're transferring that over to you by bringing you up onto their stage. You have a captive audience. So when you are on a podcast, the people listening, they are not disassociating while scrolling Instagram. They are driving their car, they are exercising, they are folding laundry, and they are listening. They chose to hit play and listen to you speak. So they're very captive and engaged, and you're getting evergreen assets. You can take your podcast appearances from even 3 years ago and repurpose them into content today. And here is why most coaches who try podcast guesting say, it didn't work for me. They do a little thing called blind blaming. Number one, they rely on inbound requests and they stumble into a host's sales funnel. Now, this is something I've seen over just the last couple of years. What's more and more prevalent in the podcast industry is that people are starting a podcast with the sheer goal of having it be a prospecting tool. So they're like, I'm going to start a podcast. I don't even care if anyone listens. I am just going to reach out and invite guests onto the show who I want to be my client. And then I'm going to hard sell to them after the interview into a call with me. And so what happens to so many coaches is they get these interview requests. They're like, oh my God, somebody wants to interview me on their podcast. And then you end up getting hard sold and there's nobody listening to the show because the host isn't trying to grow an audience. They're just using it as a prospecting tool. So be very careful of inbound interview requests. Number two, they pitch the wrong shows. Maybe you're genuinely trying to get on the right podcast, but those are not the shows that your audience is listening to. Number three, they don't know how to pitch. So they're trying, but nobody's responding to their emails. Number four, they show up unprepared. They ramble. They don't know when to stop talking. Their stories are not compelling, and they don't end up converting any leads from their interviews. Number five, they don't leverage the appearance. This is very common. People do podcast interviews and they sit back and say, didn't work for me. Nobody listened. That audience is small. It's like, well, did you promote it? Did you repurpose it? No, the audience must not be big enough. They don't take responsibility for their results and they give up too soon. Kevin, do you want to add anything from a blind blaming perspective here?
Yeah, well, it's something I figured out last year. Just a small tip for everyone. If you have the right agency that can drive clicks through like Facebook ads, this is one of the benefits I add to whether people are a guest on my podcast, Beyond Blind Blaming, or I'm a guest with them. We do it both ways. We put the video on our website and then we use Facebook ads to drive traffic there as a benefit for them. It's a very inexpensive, like for 200 bucks, I can drive a lot of traffic, but it makes them look like you're reinvesting in them. And again, to me, what I discovered is it makes the relationship even stronger and they're more likely to say, how else can I help you? Especially if you are a guest and you leave them a review and you tell them how much you enjoy their show, because you don't want to be on shows you don't enjoy that aren't any good anyway. But that's just my feedback. But that's something that we did. It's very inexpensive. You got to have the right agency. Trying to figure out Facebook ads on your own, don't do it. I tried. I was like, I can do this. I used to own a digital marketing agency. Well, what I forgot was that I had a whole team of people who did Facebook ads, and I, for the last, whatever years, it was 3 years ago when I sold. So for the last like 9 years before that, I never touched Facebook. It is not easy. But if you have a good team that can generate those clicks to a small group of people that are to their targeted audience, they'll appreciate it very much. So those are my little
Love
tidbits.
that.
So
All right. So what if you had a system that guaranteed you 1 to 5 podcasts a month, every single month on the right shows, coached you on how to actually show up as the authority and how to grow your business, and gave you a post-interview leverage system to turn each show into a month's worth of content and coaching clients? So you probably know, many of you have known me for a long time, or you may have guessed that we offer this as a service. So I'm going to walk you through what it would look like by the end of January. If you were to sign up with us, you will have a proven podcast one sheet PDF. We will share with you a successful media page template that you can use on your site, because that is a big recommendation I have for leveraging these podcast interviews. Get them up on your website so people going to your site can see you as an authority, that you're on other people's podcasts. We'll give you a template so you know how to design that. We will write 4 to 6 podcast interview topics that position you as a lead authority. You'll have a clear objective criteria for which podcasts will drive the most results. And you'll have your first 3 bookings. By the end of January, if you sign up with us, you're going to be on 3 incredible podcasts by the end of the first month of the year. You'll have feedback and a plan of action for future bookings. So if you go on these shows and you record it and send us the recording, we'll give you feedback on those interviews, and you will have instant credibility as a leading expert in your field. Because I'm telling you, as soon as you start talking about how you're booked, your audience sees you as an authority. It's instant. And you'll have other ideas on how to grow your business from the mastermind calls that we host. So by the end of Q1, now let's fast forward to 90 days from now. If you get started, you'll be actively featured on at least 9 aligned podcasts with warm pre-sold leads hitting your calendar. You'll have completed 3 mastermind sessions with other successful 6 to 8 figure entrepreneurs. And by the way, Kevin is on every single one of the mastermind calls that he can make at Interview Connections. You'll have completed 3 one-on-one coaching calls with your dedicated booking agent, which should give you a lot more clarity and help you get a lot more out of our service and be a better coach and guest. And you should have at least 2 months of daily social media content. The new year doesn't create momentum. A lot of people think that's the end of a year, new year, there's going to be momentum, it's going to be the best year. It doesn't matter what month it is. Decisions are what create momentum, not the time of year. By the end of Q1, here is what some of our most successful clients tell us that happened in their first 3 months. I closed a $25,000 coaching client who heard me on a podcast. I landed a paid speaking opportunity, a paid keynote speaking opportunity. Hired to speak at a retreat before any interviews got recorded. This is actually our client, Christina Woods. Before any interviews even got recorded, she started posting about how she was getting booked, and somebody hired her as a paid speaker at their retreat, where she then got a bunch of coaching clients, and closed a podcast host into their coaching program. So the host can actually not only be a referral partner and a collaborator, they could be a client. By next Christmas, now let's look, what are things going to look like in a year from now? Podcast guesting is a proven, repeatable growth channel in your business, supporting you from going from $10,000 months all the way up to $30,000 months without content burnout. And here is what some of our clients say after their first year. They've landed paid speaking engagements. They've closed a third of the podcast hosts as coaching clients. They've 10x'd the size of their email list, and they have quadrupled the investment they made to get on podcasts. Do you know what our most successful clients all have in common? I want you to put in the chat. What do you think our most successful clients all have in common, who I've talked about? What do you think they all have in common? Why don't you take a guess? They make a freaking decision.
Hell
They
yeah. Way
stay
to go,
visible.
guys.
The one thing our clients that are most successful all have in common is number one, they show up to their monthly calls with their dedicated booking agent and they're in conversation with us. They're coming to the mastermind calls and they're doing the work. They are implementing. They're hearing the advice they hear on this webinar and then their coaching calls and at the mastermind, they're making decisions and they're putting it into action. That is what they all have in common. I love these guesses. So the guarantee, if you do your part and we don't hit the guaranteed 3 bookings a month, we keep working until we do without any extra payment from you. There are no excuses, there are no hidden fees, and you don't pay for pitches, you don't pay for our effort, you pay for the result. And there's a few different bonuses that you'll also get from signing up with us. Number, custom podcast media kit and one sheet. That is the design and the copy, plus a media site template. And this is all built to convert hosts into yeses and listeners into booked calls. It's not a vanity PDF. I invented the podcast one sheet 12 years ago, so we know exactly how to write and design this. That really sets you apart from the competition. Bonus number 2, you're going to get an offer positioning tune-up. So we're going to pressure test that offer, that call to action, so you actually convert listeners into clients. And bonus number 3 is our private coach community, our monthly mastermind, and our networking calls. So you're not guessing, stalling, or second guessing your moves while Q1 is underway.
Jessica, you might want to turn off your video because you're cutting out really bad. I think it might help with the bandwidth.
Okay, let me do that one second, guys.
If you want to turn off your video, I think it'll help us hear you better. Sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you. Okay, back to presenting.
Yeah, much better.
All right. We're good now? Okay. So why now? Why now? We are only onboarding 20 new clients for Q1, and this is a real capacity limit because our team, they're all local full-time employees. We have 11 team members. They're real people. I love them. We get together in person. They put a lot of care and personal attention into every single one of our clients. And we're not using AI to send these pitches, so it's all personalized. And that is why there's a real capacity limits. We're taking on 20 clients for Q1. And then once those spots are filled, the doors close. Now, what's the investment? So you get 3 bookings a month guaranteed. You can pay in full for the year and get a month free. That is $20,000. That's priority onboarding. The bonuses are locked in, and it is honestly the best option if you want momentum and certainty. And the monthly plan is $1,875 a month. This is available. It's simple. It's slightly higher if you pay monthly over time, but there's no long-term commitment. This is month to month. It's the same program, same guarantee. You just choose how you want to pay. Interviewconnections.com/gold is where you can go to see the full offer and the links to sign up. And if you want to book a call to ask any questions, the link is on that. We're going to put that link in the chat. If you're watching this on replay, it's interviewconnections.com/gold. Now, what happens next? Now, phase 1 is before January. You're going to get clarity on your offer. We're going to create your media assets and get your positioning dialed in so your podcast ready before the hosts plan their Q1 lineups. Phase 2, January, Q1, you're getting consistent podcast bookings that drive warm leads and booked calls while others are still just getting back into it, getting out of their cookie hangover. And then phase 3, by this time next year, a compounding client channel, not subject to the volatile algorithm changes, one that keeps working without posting more noise, or more hustle. Now, real talk, most coaches fail at the end of the year just for one reason. They stop making decisions. They circle back in January. They call off the hunt in December. They wait until the new year. And by then, it's already a lagging indicator because podcast guesting takes time and Q1 visibility starts before Q1 starts. The podcast guests who are going to have interviews get published in January had those interviews booked probably 5 months ago. So locking in this now means you're ahead of the January rush. It means you secure our current pricing before prices increase, and you start the year executing, not planning. You act like a builder, not a dabbler. And I'm telling you, I am here to start onboarding you and make your media assets in December. We don't check out in December, and I don't recommend you do that either. So we have a few minutes. I would like for you guys to just watch a quick video to see what can happen for your business when you do this.
At the end of the show, you have this amazing conversation and you're about to wrap up and just move on to your next meeting. And the host goes, "Hey, wait. How can I hire you?" That was really cool. And that's off the, off record. Of course, we're not recording this. So that has started to happen, I've had a streak of maybe 7 to 10 shows now where this kind of repeats itself, and 3 of them have now engaged with me.
This is the time to take action. I want you to go to interviewconnections.com/gold and make a fucking decision, as Kevin would say. I'm going to give myself permission. I usually don't curse in this, but
I've actually never heard her cuss before. Way to go. I've corrupted you. Nice work.
Make a decision. If you want to be getting coaching clients in 2026, don't waste your money, don't bleed cash, don't burn out. Do the strategy that is going to create authority and get you results predictably throughout the year. So interviewconnections.com/gold is where you can sign up. I want to thank Kevin so much for being here and just inspiring us. And Kevin, any closing words for us?
I'm just curious if the audience has any questions about blind blaming or podcast guesting. I think that'd be good. You can throw it in the chat. It's kind of hard to unmute everybody. But I love, you guys had great comments. I'm glad the MFD was a big one. That's usually what people remember the most, just being more decisive. But I'd love to see what kind of questions the group has for you.
Perfect. Okay, so Lauren asked a little bit ago, what is better? Reach out to hosts or wait for them to invite you for an interview request. So Lauren, I don't know, this came a little bit ago, but I did talk about how I don't recommend waiting for hosts to invite you. It's actually much better to be strategic and targeted with the shows that you want to be a guest on and working with an agency to make sure you're on the right podcast. So I wouldn't wait. That's where a lot of coaches fails. They wait for interview requests and end up stumbling into a host sales funnel. So that's what I would recommend there. And then we have Chris asked, do you have examples of the kinds of podcasts you have relationships with, types of places that people have shown up? So we book about 500 interviews every single month. So I know, we don't have a whole list of all the different shows. Every client, every coach that we work with has a very specific set of criteria for which podcasts are best for them. So there's not one list of saying like, these are the shows we book on and these are the shows that are going to be a good fit for you, but these are quality, well-established podcasts. We're never going to pitch a client to a show that launched yesterday and has 2 listeners and no website. These are all going to be well-established podcasts hosted by business owners and entrepreneurs that have your target audience listening. They're also not going to be the shows that make you famous. So if you ask, can you book me on Oprah or Joe Rogan? The answer is no. You're going to need to pay a lot more than $18.75 a month to try to get on a stage that big. Okay. But these are very quality, well-established podcasts. And if you have specific questions of like, could you book me on the types of shows I need? Go to interviewconnections.com/gold. There's a link to book a call if you have like personalized questions. Any other questions about podcast guesting or blind blaming? Questions for me or Kevin before we hop off?
Let me just make one other comment for Chris. Last year, that was my biggest problem with the last agency. Again, $5,000 a month. I just feel like I wasted, but I'll get over it. It's still bitter, but they kept getting me booked on these new shows, and I was like, but they have no listeners. I don't understand. And the first one that they've got me booked on has a big audience. They've been around for 2 years. I've got a ton of reviews, so I'm already seeing some benefit on my end, and I'm sure there's some other people listening that have similar stories. But I get on the phone with them if you have any questions. That's what I did.
Understand that. And that was something that Kevin, like when we first met and before he signed up, he was asking that because that, when you work with somebody who gets you on the wrong shows, it does make you a little bit gun shy. And Kevin knows I sent him very lengthy emails explaining the strategy and the process and how we analyze each show. So it's, we invented the industry. We've been doing this for 12 years. So we're definitely not going to get you on the wrong podcasts. Daniel asked, I have 3 client avatars: business, CBOs. I'm sorry, I don't know what that stands for, but home and handling, school daycare. Will podcasting prevent confusion with my target markets? I would say no, Daniel, because when you're on a podcast, like we have some clients that have a few different one sheets, like they go on shows for this type of audience and shows for this type of audience. So when you're on a podcast, you're just talking to that audience, and you're tailoring your content and your story and your messaging to the audience you're speaking to. So if you go on a podcast that's speaking to, businesses, your content for that podcast is going to be for businesses. If you're on like a super niche daycare center podcast, then obviously your stories and your call to action will be for that audience. So I don't think it would prevent confusion because you're just going to be speaking to the audience that you're on with. Yay. Yes. Johanna, 3 have been published. It's created such fantastic relationships. Yeah, I'm super excited to continue working with you too. Any other questions before we hop off? All right. Email me your name and address if you want Kevin's book for free, Jessica@interviewconnections.com. I highly recommend getting that book. And interviewconnections.com/gold is where you can get started. And we will get you signed up and onboarded and kick things off with a bang. So you're on podcast in January and not just coming out from the holiday slumber playing catch up. So interviewconnections.com/gold. Thank you all so much for being here. Thanks for your patience getting through the power outage. My husband's looking at me like, how is she still online right now? The magic of hot.
Well, just a compliment, Jessica. Stuff happens. People make mistakes. You pivoted well. So
Thank you.
kudos to you for that. You are definitely a podcasting webinar Marine. You adapted and you overcame and you had a backup. So I think everybody on this call who's ever a coach knows that the internet only breaks when you have something really important going on. So
Yep.
nice work.
Thank you so much. Happy Friday, everyone. I look forward to working with you and speaking with you and hearing from you over email. So have a great rest of your day and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.